Good morning, everybody. Once again, another episode of the Focus Daily Show. As usual, we're going to begin this show by giving all praise due to the Most High and His Son, Jesus Christ. It is through them that I am being sent with this truth as a chance for redemption, salvation, and mercy for all, including myself. Okay, we spoke about the Cherokee Removal Act. Right now, we're going to get into the treaty that was signed, the Echota Treaty. We're not going to look at the actual treaty, but we're going to go to this NPR website and check out this story they wrote about it. It's rather interesting, and it exposes a lot of truth behind this story. So, the Echota Treaty. More than 4,000 people died during their forced death march over hundreds of miles from their homeland in present-day South to Oklahoma in 1838. The treaty signed led to a deep fissure within the nation. A minority party of Cherokee elites brokered the deal with the U.S. government. Okay, turn on your discernment right here. This week we'll be discussing identity theft. We'll be discussing how once eliminating the indigenous children of God, God-chosen people, they begin to systematically replace them with foreigners, Asians, Eskimos, Gypsies, and this created the image of what we consider to be Indians today. It was a systematic extermination and replacement. But we'll get more into that later this week. This minority party of Cherokee elites brokered the deal with the U.S. government behind the back of Principal Chief John Ross, one of those replacements. As a result, the treaty pitted brother against brother and Cherokee against Cherokee. So, there were certain factions within the Cherokee Nation that tried to prevent this selling of the Cherokees sold. But due to pressure being placed upon them by outside forces, due to certain individuals wanting to be a part of this new American company that was being formed, communication broke down. And it turned brother against brother and Cherokee against Cherokee. But before the Trail of Tears, the Cherokee did everything they could to show that they could assimilate into American cultures. See, once again, there was a few who wanted actually to be a part of the things that was being presented to them. This ideal of do as thou wilt rather than following the laws and decrees of the Most High. But we'll get more into that later. They could assimilate into the American culture and that the two nations could live together. But despite the Cherokee having created a democratic government that mirrored the United States, see, that's what they messed up, trying to be democratic. We live in a republic where God is king. His son, Jesus Christ, is king. So any kind of way we feel like that we could vote over who runs things, that's completely democratic. Okay, but despite the Cherokee having created a democratic government that mirrored that of the United States, the federal government did everything it could to undermine those efforts. And now the treaty is a prime example of the legal document that shattered society throughout Native American history, echoing in other broken treaty rights from the United States government that continued to deprive the native people or the indigenous children, the chosen people of God, of their land and birthright. The story of the treaty began with the Cherokee Nation united in the desire to maintain its land in the South, what's now part of Georgia. Once they discovered this goal, Georgia became a prime suspect. This was their second big discovery of gold deposits. So each time they discovered a new gold deposit, They came in and systematically began to disenfranchise, exterminate, and destroy the chosen people of that land. All right. Now, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Alabama. Treaties had been whittling away at their land through the first 2 decades of the 1800s, and growing numbers of Cherokee were being bribed, threatened, and seceded their land and moving to present-day Arkansas. You know, this kind of reminds me of the Ku Klux Klan. You know, they use the same tactics over and over again. They may label them different. They may have different names attached to them, but it's the same tactics over and over again. Okay, people, hold on just a little bit more. Of the 5 civilized tribes, the roughly 16,000 Cherokee who remained in Georgia held onto their land the longest through their efforts to be granted basic humanity from the young nation squatting on their land. In 1825, they adopted a written alphabet of their language, which was created and taught widely within a generation. In 1827, they created a constitution based on the United States, which formed judicial, legislative, and executive branches. See, once again, this is where we begin to step away from the grace of God. We begin to create our own constitutions and ideals, how we think we can be independent and govern ourselves. But of course, first of all of this was part of prophecy. Once we begin to fall away from the grace of God, the prophecy began to take effect, just as it is written. It's not that God didn't care, but it's like a parent. You tell your child what to do and what not to do. And sometimes your children will do it anyway. So rather than punishing them physically, you let them endure the situations that they created. Okay. 4 of the powerful Cherokee men who eventually signed the Treaty of New Echota, Major Ridge, his son John Ridge, and his nephews Elias Boudinot and Stan Wattie, were doing everything right by the standards of the white government leaders they wanted to appease. Once again, more foreign imposters using stolen identities to speak on behalf of the chosen people of God, selling them into a system that would oppress them for centuries to come. They wanted to appease. They practiced and advocated for Christianized education, religion, English fluency, land holding, plantation owning, and slave owning. So when you see this word Christianized, we have to always take into consideration that the Catholic institution is based on information stolen from the temple of God. The Catholic Church are the thieves in the temple. And they took the information that they gathered from the Word, the books that they found when they arrived. And they use it to manipulate and offset the younger generations. Like when they begin to slaughter people, they systematically begin to remove the older generations who had knowledge of how things needed to be properly done and replace them with invaders perpetrating to be a part of these nations. But nonetheless, the children didn't know any better, so they was raised in a new Christianized system based on Catholic theology rather than simply based on the Word of God. The simple Word. That's why it's important that we get back to this book, people. Everything we need to know is written within the confines of this book. This book can also redeem us and grant us mercy, but we have to get back to reading it. For Major Rigg, assimilating was a matter of being forward-thinking a well-respected soldier statement. He fought alongside General Andrew Jackson, Shane, in the Creek War. He actually took on the name Major after being awarded the rank by Jackson. Ridge is a simplified translation of the name Kanog da Klagi. He was a successful businessman in the early 1800s, one of the wealthiest men in the region with the ferry trading post plantation. He owned about 30 black slaves. Well, okay, that's it for today. This week we'll be discussing more about this identity theft, the extermination and replacement of the chosen people. But until then, y'all, focus daily.